What does it take to climb from a count's bed to the bed of the most powerful king in Europe? She had no crown, no noble name, and no respectable past to speak of, only a charm that society deemed dirty, and a body that became her only currency. And with that, she seized the monarchy's treasures, the affection of a king, and the hatred of an entire kingdom. Today, on Herstory, we're diving into the lavish gifts Louis XV gave her, the nights that changed the course of French history, and the children history has attributed to her. This isn't just a story about kings and kingdoms. It's a story of the boudoir, of power, and how intimacy can be the most dangerous battlefield of all. Hello, Herstory lovers. It's me again, ready to travel back in time to a Versailles you might not know. Get ready, because today we're meeting the woman who, with a simple smile, dared to challenge a queen and an entire monarchy. Today, we're going to unearth Marie-Jeanne Bécu, the infamous Comtesse du Barry. Our story, like all the best ones, doesn't start in a palace, but on the streets. Marie-Jeanne was born in 1743, the illegitimate daughter of a seamstress. Her childhood was far from princely. But from a young age, she proved to have a sharp intellect and limitless ambition. Her mother, shrewd in her own way, ensured Jeanne had a basic education and, more importantly, introduced her into the circles of the Parisian elite. Jeanne was like a sponge. She absorbed everything. She learned to speak elegantly, move with grace, and dress with a signature style no one could imitate. She worked in several jobs, but her beauty and magnetic personality led her to the most influential social circles. It was in the salon of Madame de la Garde, a place many considered a high-class brothel, where she met the man who would change her destiny, Jean-Baptiste Du Barry. He wasn't a blue-blooded aristocrat, but he was an elite procurer, a well-connected businessman. With an eye for talent and opportunity, Jean-Baptiste Du Barry saw in Jeanne not just a woman, but a project. And that project had a single target, the king. To understand Jeanne's ascent, we have to understand the king. Louis XV was not the sun king of his grandfather Louis XIII. He was tired, melancholy, and had lost the women in his life, his wife the queen, and his great love, the Marquise de Pompadour. He felt lonely, surrounded by courtiers who only sought his favor. The palace, for him, was a golden cage full of falsehood and protocol. Count Du Barry, knowing this, decided to present Jeanne to the king. And the encounter, chroniclers of the time say, was pure magic. The king, a 60-year-old man, fell madly in love with this 25-year-old woman. Her smile, her uninhibited laughter, her lack of pretense, they were a breath of fresh air in suffocating Versailles. The relationship blossomed quickly. The king was not only charmed by her beauty, but by her ability to make him laugh, to speak to him without the suffocating protocol everyone else demanded. The relationship was quickly consummated. Louis XV spared no expense for his new favorite. He gifted her jewelry, diamonds, and silk dresses that cost fortunes. But his most ostentatious and personal gift was the Château de Louveciennes, a small paradise where the couple could escape the rigidity of the court. The nights there were legendary. Away from the prying eyes of the courtiers, the king and his mistress lived an almost normal couple's life, sharing books, meals, and long conversations. Though official history never confirmed it, many rumors of the time and recent studies suggest Jeanne and the king might have had children. There is talk of a child born in secret, but no definitive proof. What we do know is that the relationship wasn't merely physical. The king confided state secrets to her, asked her opinion on court matters, and treated her with a tenderness he had long lost. The boudoir had become his cabinet of trust. Do you think a king can truly fall in love? Or was he just seeking companionship? Was Jeanne's relationship with Louis XV love or a master plan? I want to read your theories in the comments. The court, of course, couldn't tolerate this. The royal family and the nobility refused to accept a commoner, a woman without honor, as they called her. Count Du Barry, knowing that if Jeanne wanted a seat at the king's table, she couldn't remain a commoner, quickly married her off to his brother, a man without money or status, just to give her a noble name, Comtesse Du Barry. The title was a farce, but a farce the court, bound by law, had to play along with. The day of her official presentation at court was one of the most dramatic moments in the history of Versailles. Every noble, every duchess was there, waiting to see the putain du roi, the king's whore, as they called her behind her back. When Jeanne appeared, draped in a gown of silver and diamonds, the silence was deafening. Everyone expected her to stumble, to be overwhelmed, but she, with her unshakable smile, moved with the grace of a queen. The presentation was a humiliating success for the court. Despite their rejection, the king named her his maîtresse en titre, his official mistress, the most powerful figure at court after him. But the real royal reality show arrived with the young fiancée of the Dauphin, the future queen, Marie Antoinette. The court expected the young Austrian princess to befriend Du Barry out of protocol. How naive! The Austrian aristocracy had raised Marie Antoinette to view royalty as sacred, and the mere idea of a commoner holding such power utterly scandalized her. Marie Antoinette hated her, viewing her as a disgrace to the throne. The confrontation was epic. For months, they refused to speak to each other. At every event, every ball, the tension was palpable. It was a diplomatic conflict so severe that even Marie Antoinette's mother, the Empress of Austria, had to intervene. Finally, at a New Year's ball, Marie Antoinette, with the coldest face in the kingdom, spoke to her. Il y a bien du monde aujourd'hui à Versailles. There are many people at Versailles today. An innocent comment, right? But everyone understood the venom. Jeanne, with a smile, replied, "Yes, Your Majesty, far too many." It was a war of wits and power, and for a moment the commoner was winning. But happiness at court is never eternal. In 1774, King Louis XV died of smallpox. The first order from the new king, Louis XVI, and his queen, Marie Antoinette, was categorical. Exile Du Barry. The woman who had challenged the nobility with her sheer existence was sent to a convent, and later to her beloved Château de Louveciennes. And here comes the most tragic part of the story. Years later, when the French Revolution broke out, Jeanne Du Barry could have fled. But she returned to France for a surprising reason: to recover some stolen jewels, a decision that sealed her fate. But fate, sometimes, has a cruel sense of irony. The Countess's life would intersect with that of one of her former possessions. During her time with the king, he had gifted her a young boy from Bengal, modern-day Bangladesh, named Zamor, who became her personal page. Jeanne gave him luxury, an education, and a life he never would have known. But Zamor never forgot his roots. With the revolution, he joined the Jacobins, the fierce enemies of the monarchy. In 1793, at the Countess's trial, the main prosecution witness was her own page. Zamor testified against her. His words helped seal Jeanne's fate. She was condemned to death. Unlike the queen, who maintained her composure until the end, Jeanne broke down. She cried and begged for her life, screaming in terror. The woman who had audaciously challenged power crumbled when facing her destiny, betrayed by a figure from her own past. The woman who had audaciously challenged power crumbled when facing her destiny. Her life, which had begun in misery, ended the same way, but not before she had lived the life of a queen, though without a crown. The story of Jeanne Du Barry reminds us that power isn't always won by lineage, and that the judgment of society often says more about society itself than the person being judged. Her life was a meteor of beauty, intelligence, and power that was extinguished by the guillotine. If you like unraveling the story behind the women who wrote it, don't forget to subscribe to Herstory so you don't miss any chapter. And now, tell me, what other historical figure would you like us to explore? Leave it in the comments. See you in the next video.